I just want to point out that the Dublin Region Homeless Executive sent a circular to their councillors in the last week and to offer reassurance to Happen-Ras and other tenants who may be affected by notices of termination, and that's a quote. And the reassurance they give is that they refer the tenant to threshold. A HAP tenant can look for alternative accommodation on the rental market. Social housing, as a matter of course, they'll assess their needs. And DCC are using a considerable degree of flexibility for tenants in situ purchases. I certainly would not be reassured if I had a notice of eviction. Notwithstanding, I know the woman who issued the circular, and she's a very fine representative for the interests of housing, but I'm no doubt her own hands are tied behind her back. And instead, what we need is a continuation of the no-fault eviction ban. We need, despite what all of you say on the other side, to establish a public building company that will build houses at the scale needed. We need to bring in a use it or lose it scheme. We need to increase Part 5, and we need to expand the tenants in situ targets. And don't tell me that the opposition have not come up with bills or ideas or proposals to try and help resolve this crisis. We're blue in the face putting motions and bills here and being voted down on them. So the protest on Saturday, the 1st of April, 1 o'clock here on Kildare Street, is hugely important for anybody who wants to see real change in this country. Yep. We just saw this morning the charade of independents and others backing up a failed government, and the only answer is people power and feet on the streets.
Question on protests. Deputy, I have no difficulty at all with protests. Protests are an important part of democracy. They're not allowed in some countries which you champion, but they are allowed in this country, and provided protests are peaceful. Well, look, are protests allowed peacefully to take place in Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua?
If we can just keep to the responses, please.
I'm glad that it's on the record of the House that the Deputy is not supportive of Cuba. Thank you. Good, thank you. That's the revelation.
Can we just go back to the topic, please,
and I do apologise and withdraw. I do apologise and withdraw if I was mistaken in ever thinking that Deputy Smith and Deputy Boyd Barrett were ever supporters of Cuba. I'm glad they've confirmed that they've never been supporters of Cuba. That is a good thing to hear, and I'm glad that that's on the record of the House today. But like I say, no problem, no objection, and welcome peaceful protest. In relation to the motion of confidence, which a number of deputies referred to, I note that we won it by a margin of almost 20. Didn't need the votes of independent deputies, but had quite a lot of them, which is very, very, very welcome, and I thank them for it. And it is difficult, given the margin of the victory, to understand why some commentators seem to be thinking in the past week or two that the government was ever under pressure, that there was ever any possibility of us losing that vote. There wasn't. This government has a comfortable majority and has a supermajority with the help of a number of independents. This is the 4th stall I think I'm a member of, and I haven't seen governments win votes as big, with the exception of the time we were in government with Fine Gael and Labour, when we also had a supermajority because the 2 biggest parties in the Dáil were in the same coalition again. So I can give people the assurance that this government is built to last, and this is a government that can go full term. In relation to the idea of establishing a public building company, we have established a new public company, the Land Development Agency. It was opposed by most of the left-wing deputies on this House. Most was supported by the Labour Party, in fairness to them, not the Social Democrats. I'm glad that that company now exists and that it's now building housing not too far from you, Cahirlock in Shangana, and I believe in time that will be as big a game changer as the IDA and Aer Lingus and ESB were. A public house building company that's going to build homes on behalf of the state. A really positive development. It got off to a slow start, and I'm disappointed about that, but it is getting going now, and we need to give it the capital it needs to do a lot more. I think the suggestion, though, from the Deputy is a slightly different one, that there should be direct labour, that it should take on construction workers. And like any idea, I think that is worthy of being scoped out. I do think there are pros and cons. There is plenty of evidence to suggest that when the government or the public sector builds something, it takes longer and costs more. And that may be for very good reasons. It might be because the workers have better pensions, because they've better pay, and because we have to go through certain public procedures. But it probably is the case that if the government does something for lots of good reasons, it's going to cost more. and it's going to take longer, and we'd have to bear that in mind in any policy decision. And it might also displace workers and displace development from the private sector at a higher cost, taking longer. And you need to bear those things in mind when you make decisions too.
We're way over